Herzlich willkommen bei Digitale Optimisten, der Podcast, der dir die erfolgreichsten Gründer und Ideen der nächsten Generation vorstellt. Direkt aus dem Herzen der Digitalisierung, dem Silicon Valley. Ich bin Alex und die heutige Folge von Digitale Optimisten ist ein echtes Highlight für mich, denn ich rede mit Nick Montana, Co-Gründer und CEO von Balto. Alle Football-Fans werden beim Namen Montana genauer hinhören. Nicks Vater Joe Montana ist einer der besten Football-Spieler aller Zeiten. Für die San Francisco 49ers hat er 4 Super Bowls gewonnen und ist 3-mal MVP, also wertvollster Spieler geworden. Für alle, die sich nicht mit Football auskennen, Joe Montana hat in den USA etwa den Stellenwert von Franz Beckenbauer hier in Deutschland, nur ohne WM-Bestechungsskandal. Nick ist erstmal in die Fußstapfen seines Vaters getreten und hat semi-professionell im College Football gespielt. Ich kann mir den Druck kaum vorstellen, den er jeden Tag gespürt haben muss, wenn er immer wieder mit seinem Vater verglichen wurde. Und du kannst heute noch auf YouTube Videos sehen, wo er als Quarterback Fehler macht, immer mit dem Hinweis, dass er der Sohn eines der größten aller Zeiten ist. Was mich an Nick beeindruckt, ist, was er aus dieser Situation macht. Mit Mut und Optimismus hat er einen anderen Weg für sich gefunden, raus aus dem Schatten seines Vaters und hin zum Unternehmer. Nicks Startup Balto hat frisch das Programm des Y Combinators absolviert, einem der bekanntesten Startup Accelerator der Welt, in dem Milliardenfirmen wie Airbnb oder Stripe ihre ersten Schritte gemacht haben. Nick nimmt sich mit Balto Großes vor. Er greift das Geschäftsmodell von Casinos und Buchmachern an und will den Markt für Sportwetten disrupten. Dafür musst du 2 Dinge wissen. In den USA sind sogenannte Fantasy-Football-Ligen riesig und Sportwetten waren bis 2018 in fast den gesamten USA verboten. Fantasy-Football ist am ehesten mit dem Kicker-Manager-Spiel oder Communio vergleichbar. Mit Freunden formst du eine Liga und du bist dann der Manager eines eigenen Teams, wählst Spieler aus und trittst gegen die Teams der anderen an. Nicks Startup nutzt die Popularität dieser Fantasy-Football-Ligen, um Peer-to-Peer-Sportwetten anzubieten und das ohne jeglichen Hausvorteil. Nick spricht sehr frei über die Monetarisierungsstrategie und du wirst sehen, glaube ich, dass Affiliate-Modelle vielleicht doch noch nicht ganz tot sind. Der Markt ist riesig und wie Nick sagt, legalisiert sich gerade schneller als Marihuana in den USA. Am meisten Spaß gemacht hat mir, als wir über seinen Pitch am Ende des Y Combinator-Programms gesprochen haben. Nick hat 2 Tage vorher noch vernichtende Kritik von seinem Mentor bekommen, sagt selbst, er hatte die schlimmste Beta-Version aller Zeiten, tut sich ein bisschen schwer mit Public Speaking und geht dann in die Höhle des Löwen. Wie das ausgeht, ob er selber denkt, sein berühmter Vater ist Fluch oder Segen und was das größte Learning für jeden angehenden Unternehmer ist, das besprechen wir jetzt in dieser Folge. Schreib mir unbedingt deine Meinung zu Nick und Balto auf digitaleoptimisten.de/Nick. Wenn du den Podcast bei iTunes, Spotify oder wo auch immer mit 5 Sternen bewertest, hilft mir das sehr, mehr Menschen zu erreichen. An das Ende dieser Folge packe ich wie immer die 3 Sachen, die ich persönlich aus dem Gespräch gelernt habe. Und jetzt viel Spaß mit dem Gespräch. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Nick, you were an exceptional athlete in college, right? You were a quarterback for a couple of universities. Tell us about your career as a quarterback.
I grew up playing sports. I always knew I was going to end up somewhere, in college playing hopefully football. Was able to, I worked really hard through high school and, received 15 to 20 full ride scholarships. My first one was actually Stanford. My mom's still disappointed I turned that one down. But I ended up going to University of Washington, then later Tulane. And it was by far the best experience of my life, easily.
Yeah. So you're the star quarterback of your team. What's the daily routine of a quarterback in university?
Yeah, so you wake up usually around 5 a.m. and you sprint down so you're not late to your morning workout where you're going to run and lift weights and get yelled at if you don't touch the line. And from there, you go to practice. You'll practice for 2 hours. You'll go have meetings, break down the film from the practice, then watch film on your opponent that's coming. Then you're free, go to class, do what you got to do, come back for film, and then rinse and repeat that.
Wow. So that is That is very professional, right? That's almost professional sports there, right?
They really get you at a young age to embrace the process and the grind, as they'll call it in football. And, that kind of transpires into everything else that I do now, and I take that with me.
Yeah. So how much time do you actually have for school?
It's like working a full-time job and then on top of that going to school. So it's not unlike someone else that may be paying their way through and working. It's the same type of commitment, I guess just more physical, definitely mental as well, and there's some other things there. But
yeah. So what I found when I did a bit of an online research on you, that there's a bunch of YouTube videos, you in press conferences, also a couple of articles when you made a mistake. I mean, you're the quarterback, right? So the central role of your team. I saw one article, Nick Montana spikes the ball at 4th and 1.
Oh, yeah.
So I just thought, you're a young person, trying to juggle, a full-time athlete job and, paying attention at school. And then you have to kind of deal with press conferences and the press. That's a bunch of pressure, right, for a young person?
It absolutely is. But, I was raised very well by my parents who prepared me for what was coming from a football family and with the last name that I have. And then playing football, specifically playing QB, just stacks that pressure, 100x. And so anything you do, it's under a microscope. I learned that very quickly. That's why I've been sober from Facebook for as long as I've been going to college and now even still today. So you learn quickly that there's eyes watching you. Everything's under a microscope. You make a bad play, it's a tough one, and you're going to get talked about.
So, but how did you? Your parents prepared you, right? Which is fantastic. But still, when you read these kinds of stuff, do you have to kind of? How do you cope with it? There must be some sort of mechanism, right, that gets triggered.
Yeah, it's not easy, and they can prepare you as much as they can, but it really never does it all the way. And I can distinctly remember my first game that I got to start at Washington. The first half was great, threw 2 touchdowns. I thought I was the man, and then the second half went completely opposite, and we ended up losing the game. It was, I was in tears. It's like, it is what it is. I'm a perfectionist, and when it doesn't go, the way that I practiced all week, it was really difficult to take. Then you go sit up on the stand, and you get rocked by questions they're really tough to answer and tough to swallow. I'm 19 at the time, and it was a lot for sure. It was a lot.
I think it's incredible. At 19, I think I was nowhere near to be able to handle this kind of pressure. I think it's really impressive. So, when you talked about it, there's a whole lot of exercising routines that you do. Physical exercise seems was a huge part, I guess, of your life. Does that carry over after you stop playing semi-professionally, I guess, football in university?
Absolutely. There's always that drive. Anything sport-related, I'm out there. Mm-hmm. If you want to go play volleyball, I'll be there. Football, basketball, anything. Right now, my competitiveness and my athletic mindset has taken me to surfing. So I wake up really early, same time zone as I was to go for those workouts, but surfing's just something I really enjoy. Being outside in the water clears your mind, and that's all you're thinking about.
Yeah. What's your favorite spot, Ocean Beach or Baker Beach?
My favorite spot is Fort Point. It's right under the Golden Gate Bridge,
nice.
And it's incredible when it's going.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's the spot to be. I think the reason why I ask this is, you have this pressure, growing up, being under the spotlight a bit, and also having this exercise routine. Do you think that helped you in your role as a founder now?
Absolutely. So many, it starts with the process, and you look at the most successful people and how they go about whatever their business may be, and it always comes back to process. You go back to the fundamentals, the consistency, and that's when you really start to produce results. You can start to measure things because, they're easier to see when you're keeping things consistent, and you can find those levers that are going to make things go up and to the right, or things that you should really iterate on quickly.
Mm-hmm. And after, at some point your college career was about to end, right? And you had to make a decision. What do I do next? So you mentioned, there's a lot of maybe expectations also because you come from a football family. How was it like to make that decision of what to do next?
It wasn't easy, but one thing that helped that wasn't again easy is that I was coming off 2 injuries, both my junior and senior year, separated both shoulders, right in the middle of the season. So that affected me playing on the field and just generally throwing and trying to compete at a high level. We just saw 2 days ago Andrew Luck, starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. They were expected to go win their conference and have a shot at the title. He retired at, I think it's 31 or 30? 29, yeah. And so, his whole thing was, I'm so tired of being in this cycle of, I get hurt, I'm in pain, and I go to rehab and rinse and repeat that. And I could understand it. It happened to me 2 years in a row. Trainers are great, but you don't want to be hanging out with them in the training room. So that was difficult. Making the decision, that made it a little bit easier. I was very fed up with that. I love football and everything that it gave me, and more than anything, I missed the people in the locker room. Of course, you miss the games and the excitement as well, but with those injuries comes a different perspective, and I was just ready for what the next thing was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And I think that next thing was your first company, right? After you finished college, I think it's a company called Cakewalk.
Yep.
What was that? So maybe how did you come up with that idea? Where do you find also the energy and the passion to start your own company?
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of college, I was very lucky. I worked with Allbirds, 5 people there, pre-launch through their launch. And then I went and worked for a YC company that had just come out of the batch called Mentat. They're no longer around, but they're doing machine learning around job placement. Mm-hmm. I was number 5 there too. So I got this really cool perspective on these individuals taking these huge risks. They were, very decisive and, assertive in what they believed, and they were going for it. And I really respected that. It reminded me a lot about football and that constant chaos or controlled chaos. It was exciting. I was drawn to it. And all I wanted to do was start my own after that. And so I got this opportunity. I had an idea which morphed into Cakewalk, which was really a marketplace for high-end reservations in San Francisco. Starting with San Francisco, again, kind of goes back to the family ties. But going in, say we go to Kakari or Nobu with the family, big family of 6 on a Friday at 7, didn't make any reservations, and you show up, and if your dad's Joe, there's always a table. And that's what I realized. I was like, no way is that just sitting there. And so I started talking to the restaurants, and the consensus was that they always have these spots left over for these type of VIPs. And I had this conviction about these tech guys in the city that have been so successful that probably feel like they're on that same level and want that same recognition as a superstar athlete, but it is what it is. No one is going to recognize you unless you're Zuckerberg. Mm-hmm. And so these same people that I assumed would pay for convenience and pay for that kind of superstardom, they're the people that you would never recognize as a restaurant either. So I went to the restaurants, told them I'll bring you these big spenders and I'll give you the information on them. You can cultivate this relationship. You save me a few tables and you'll make some extra revenue too because they're going to buy it as a convenience. Mm-hmm. So I started doing that, and I built up a list of these VIPs, and I was slinging reservations.
That's great. So how long did you do that? And so where did you kind of say at some point you pulled the plug on it, right? And
I did it for a year. And so I played with that idea for a while, for probably 6 months of that year. And what I realized was, one, those same people that pay for convenience change their mind like that. So I ended up calling the restaurants more than with bad news rather than good news. It was actually funny, though, because I guess nobody calls restaurants to cancel because they would always thank me up and down. And I'm like, hey, I'm telling you they're not coming, right? You should make sure you heard that. But I guess, they really liked the communication that's not out there. And I figured out, it really wasn't going to scale. I had some restaurants people would pay $2,000 for on the spot. Table of 2, distinctly remember the look. Trying to mask the look on my face when they threw out that number. And but then, as you're trying to provide this marketplace to these people, they want infinite spots. And once you get past 10, 15 restaurants, no one really wants to pay for those. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult to bring this huge offering of restaurants that never get a call, and they really don't want to be a part of it. And so I quickly realized it wasn't going to scale.
So that's like the restaurant part of the business, right? But how did you get the celebrities?
Yeah, I I did a lot. I mean, I hit up everybody I knew, of course, through football, any of the investor relationships that I've known through my buddies that are doing it, or through my brother, etc. And the word spread quickly. I ended up building up about 300-400 people, and it worked well. I did some very manual stuff too. I went and knocked on the doors and out in Seacliff and where all the big expensive houses are, and put my little concierge card on there to let them know that I was there for them. And so any way I could find them, really.
Cool. Okay. So at one point you thought, okay, this is going to be hard to scale. I would have to get people in New York, Los Angeles, everywhere, and that's going to be hard. So he said, I've got a better idea.
So as I was doing this, these type of VIPs, they have a personal assistant or some kind of assistant, and the assistants would start side emailing me and asking, hey, the tables for 1 to 4 aren't that hard sometimes, but do you do private dining? And that just kept being a theme. And so I dug into that. And private dining is this black box that the restaurants don't release their availability or their pricing until they hear you pick up the phone and email. So it's this really manual process as a assistant trying to book, a private room for 10 or 12. And, I thought that if I could get the restaurants to, put up their supply, that it could be something, much easier for these assistants booking and really just offer that transparency between the two. And so because there were so many assistants doing it, I decided I might as well give that a shot as well.
Interesting. Okay. And then, so that was the first pivot, I guess, after your first idea. And then you did that for the remainder of the 6 months?
I did it for 6 months, and it was so manual. I remember, if I got 3 requests in a day, I did that for the whole entire day because I was on the phones, calling the restaurants off the chart because they wouldn't give me their client, their openings essentially, because they thought, we can't compromise our clients. We don't want to end up paying for these people through your service, and if you make it that convenient. And so 3 requests, that'd be my whole day. And I remember there's one day where I woke up and I was like, I hope no one calls today. And that's when I knew that I had to stop what I was doing.
So that was the moment you thought, okay, maybe there is other fish to fry, other ideas that you could go after.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's kind of what led into what I'm doing at Balto. And Balto's much different story, and it's really something that fits exactly the mold of who I am, and in a lot of different ways made more sense and makes the most sense for me as a founder to be doing.
So yeah, let's talk about Balto. So I registered on the site. I already entered Joe Montana's it's a survivor pool, I think.
It's a pick'em. No, you got it. Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful website. I can recommend everyone to check it out. It's certainly an area that I, coming from Europe, haven't been too familiar with. But now that I live in the States, of course, I have to kind of get in the March Madness brackets, get the survivor pools. So maybe for all our listeners, what does Balto do?
Yeah, so we are a social sports betting platform, all without the notion of the house. So what that means is you're going to come make bets against other real people, and there won't be that percentage of what's called juice. As you would go bet in a casino, they're always going to take usually around 5%. And that's because, they're trying to find 2 equal bets on each side and really trying to balance out their own odds. For us, if we can match 2 people up, we're able to offer it essentially commission-free. So every bet, everything that we do happens between people, between these communities of people that love that sport or that event or tournament or game, and what we're doing is matching them up against each other and giving them those tools to make those bets against each other.
Got it. So it's I think that the 2 things that you have on your site now is pick'ems and survivor pools, right? And that's exactly what you're doing. You're offering a super easy to use tool to get people to build up their own little pools and brackets and get people involved some friends, colleagues, and to get them to run their pools by themselves and set up their own rules.
Absolutely. So we want to give them the tools and the infrastructure to, again, we direct everything at the manager. There's these people that, like myself, for as long as I can remember, go to these sites. They do all this manual work. They recruit 10, 20, 50, hundreds. We have a couple pools in the thousands. All these people to a site. They communicate with all of them. They tell them their specific rules. They set up the game. They're in charge of, collecting all the money, making sure who's paid and who hasn't paid, multiple entries, mulligans. And they have historically been doing this all on an Excel spreadsheet, just like myself. And then, so you do that on one site. And then what happens is March Madness comes around, or PGA, or some other event that you want to have this pool for, and the site that you're on doesn't offer it, or the flexibility or the rules. And so you'll go to another platform, and now this huge group's going to come with you to this other platform. Now you got 2 usernames, 2 signups on 2 sites, and then you rinse and repeat that again for another. And so I went through that, and it's just a pain in the ass for the managers. It's so difficult. It's so manual. It turns into a second job very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I love managing it, and I love setting these up, and I love that competitive social interaction that'll come from these games. And so I wanted to build something that fixed it for myself, and so that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. So basically you're tapping into this huge market of I love social gambling. Is that social sports gambling, I guess?
Absolutely.
And making it easier for people to actually run their own rules and show. Maybe you can help me understand, because I learned that this market is actually huge, right? It has exploded since a couple of years ago. So how big is that market?
So sports betting, they're saying that that's going to be $150 billion in the U.S., which is incredible, and a lot of things go into that. The pools, it's been such a taboo and very black market, if you will, that you don't have the same statistics. You don't even have great statistics on sports betting. So maybe it's 150, maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. It's tough to say right now because everything's been your black market bookie dealers and everything offline, et cetera. We do know there's somewhere between 30 and 40 million people playing in these pools every year. And so there's big volume. There's this existing behavior. People love playing them. They're exchanging money, and they've been doing it illegally for some time. And that's what you saw in traditional sports betting, and that's what's becoming legal, state by state. And so with that many people and that much money being exchanged, it becomes super interesting for us.
Mm-hmm. You're not the first in this market, obviously, as you mentioned, right? There are a couple of competitors out there. And I think maybe the 2 names that a lot of people know, I guess, are DraftKings and FanDuel. So just, to make it clear, how are you different to DraftKings and FanDuel?
Absolutely. So there's 2 fundamental ways that we're different. One, we're coming off as a very social sports betting platform. Everything we do, we are trying to emphasize that competitive social interaction that's inherent in sports betting. At the end of the day, people want to bet with their friends. They want to bet against their friends, and there's just absolutely nothing for them to do that right now. If you look at someone who enjoys sports betting and you were to open up their text message thread, I can guarantee you there's a group chat of people betting each other back and forth, talking smack, and all this happens off channel, and they're placing their bets or they're running their pools on a different site. And so for us, it's about how do you combine that experience and make it into something very special. And it really looks like almost this mini social network combined with sports betting. And when you take sports bettors and how emphatic they can be, that could be something very powerful. And so as we look at these pools, they look more like mini communities, and that's kind of what we want to emphasize. And just to keep pushing on those social dynamics within those, and emphasize that smack talk, things like the leaderboards and the competition in between those. And so that's really that's the first way we're different, and we want to continue to be on the social side. And then the second way, when you look at FanDuel and DraftKings, they have some of the similar competitions that in technology that we've built. They are the manager, though. So what that means is they'll host this big open competition. You can come on, but you won't see your friends playing. You won't even know if they're in the same pool or competing in the same contest as you. What we do is build you those tools and that infrastructure to allow these managers to come set these contests up themselves. They can host their pools for just their friends and family, for their coworkers, or open it up, like we've seen, to thousands of players on our platform.
Got it. Okay, so you're allowing everyone to be their own DraftKings, their own FanDuel, just by the way that they want to set up the rules, and you have the social aspect as well. The thing that I find really interesting about this market is there are, as you mentioned, 30 to 40 million Americans doing these kinds of brackets or, sports gambling. And they found their niches here and there. They might have spreadsheets or other solutions. So you have a kind of a pre-existing market that you're trying to put an alternative out there that is better than, well, certainly a spreadsheet, but the alternatives that they have now. Mm-hmm. So how do you convince people to kind of, first off, how do you get their attention and how do you convince them that your solution is better than what they have now?
Great question. We launched in January with the worst beta of all time. And then we launched again in March Madness, which is really we still consider it a beta, but in those first 2 games that we launched, I was on my knees begging people to get on and play it, just try it. And we did a couple things that were better, but I don't know if it was better overall, but it was easy. I'll say that. It was easy to sign up and invite people and get them on there. Nothing else was that crazy about it. We got crafty for March Madness, which I can tell you about later, which kind of exploded our growth right around YC Demo Day, which was great for us. But beyond that, right now is such an incredible time because we have people writing in and they're raving about it. They're going and posting it on Reddit forums. They're going to their podcast and they're hosting it a big pool for their audiences and creating this content and weekly trends and dynamics they can pull and talk about. And whether that's smack talking the person in last or first, they're writing in, asking us to build more. Everything that you want is happening, and it couldn't be more different than the last 6 months. So we're building for the managers, and it's really starting to show that the tools that we built make their lives easier. And it's not an easy process, but people are buying in. We'll do demos for them, and a lot of it's been organic. We get happy to dive into deeper on some of the go-to-market strategies and stuff that have been working well as well. But just overall, I think the product has put us in a great position.
Got it. Okay, so I think that's an interesting part, because you are early stage, right? And you're testing some stuff, adding some features. So you started in January. Then you had a couple. March Madness came up. That's super impressive that you got something up and running until March Madness. And how? So then kind of the product evolves. You go into YC. So what were the milestones that you were trying to achieve, and how has that kind of translated into, people on your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. For what we wanted to start off building, and we failed at right from the start, was building a game agnostic technology, which now we have. But back in January and for March Madness, we were in such a rush that you do want to build quick and push it out, but you want to be thoughtful about it. And we were more concerned about implementing so much feedback at a rapid pace that we didn't stop to set ourselves up for the future and what we knew was coming. And that made it difficult. We built a very one-dimensional game that we really will be able to use some things from it, but it doesn't apply like our software today applies. We built 2 frameworks, as you mentioned, Survivor, Pick'em, and we could skin that for any single game. We can throw a Survivor for The Bachelor if anyone wants to go do that. So that's really the fundamental difference. I think we got caught up in the speed and the pace and didn't think through, how we should have. And that made it difficult to translate that into, some of the milestones that we were trying to hit early on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but so you when did you go into, what was your goal graduating out of Y Combinator for Demo Day?
Yeah, our goal, we wanted to hit 20,000 users, and we wanted to raise money and find some investors that understood betting, gaming, and what we were trying to do. And that was, really it. We were soaking it up like sponges. Everything YC does is incredible. From day one through Demo Day, you're learning so much and learning what not to do just as importantly as what maybe you should be trying or testing.
So your goal was 20,000 users, and that's like in June, July, or was that?
That was for March. Demo Day lined up with March Madness.
But that is like in 3 months. Getting 20,000 users, I think that's incredible growth, right? That's really impressive.
Absolutely. So that's why we got so much interest on Demo Day. We didn't end up hitting that milestone. We didn't get a user. We didn't have anything built until 2 weeks out, and we got 13,000 in 2 weeks, which is incredible.
Still incredible.
It really proved to us that, yeah, there's these legacy sites out there. Everybody knows ESPN and CBS, but people don't care that much about them. You ask people what they played on last year, most of them are like, I think it was Yahoo, but I don't know, which we would just smile at every single time. So, yeah, it was difficult, and but we also did do a couple things right.
Mm-hmm. And I think I read that online. I'm not sure if you did, but you did a Game of Thrones bracket too.
Absolutely.
So what was could you bet on the person who's going to survive or win the throne?
We were doing a dead or alive pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dead, alive, White Walker. So It was almost like, let's see, like you can imagine like a Tinder where someone's face shows up. So it could be, Hodor, and then you'd tell us if it was dead, alive, or White Walker that week, and some of the theories, and we had a couple thousand people join for that as well. And, yeah, it was just a fun game. It was something that we could build quickly, and a lot of people were asking if we could do it, and we were able to surprise and delight.
Yeah, I find it interesting because when you mentioned some of the competitors like ESPN, they're sports focused, right? And that might be something that you can branch out with and get some initial interest from people.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now you stood at 12,000. How many users do you have now on the platform?
So we rarely look at it like cumulatively. We look at it game by game because they're so different. People that play Game of Thrones may or may not want to be playing in the NFL. And so right now for our NFL, we just crossed 9,000. So new users for coming up into this season. The most important thing is we have a little over 1,000 managers. And what the ratio's been for us is each one of those managers brings us additional 26 players, which is incredible viral component. That's why everything we do is just based on like how many managers can we get? Because what you'll see in these games is over the next 10 days, it'll be exponential growth. Just an example is 2 weeks ago, our growth was 8.5%. This past week, it was 17.5%. And this next week will probably be 25 to 30, and it'll just continue to go up until the start of the season.
Wow. So that's what I find interesting about the go-to-market, because you basically need the managers, right? You have to migrate them over, and they're going to get their people over because they're obviously managing the group, sending out the link to Balto and get them in, right? So that is, that's a very interesting target group to target. Is there any way, and so now you're going with organic, word of mouth, that's working great for you, but have you ever thought about, paid advertising in a way, or how would you even target these people?
Yeah, great question. So that's why one of our co-founders is from Google. So he runs all of our ads, and, we don't pay very much. We don't spend very much on marketing in general. What we do, is particularly in this space is try and be the best at SEO and try and just show up, above our competitors. And sometimes we're buying some keywords around certain times. But, as you alluded to, we're looking for managers, and we have specific windows when we can convert them. Most products, you get to look at your growth in a week and make iterations for the next week and the next week. We don't have that luxury. We have usually a month to 2 week window, as we learned from March Madness, that people are actually going to care and sign up per event. And so we are, right now in the process of mapping out for each event that we've launched, when's our best chance at converting these people? When are they paying attention? When are they actually going to take action? And when do those users then come? And, the verdict's still out there, but that's something that's top of mind for us and that we're measuring every single day.
Awesome. So we talked a bit about, where you stand with your companies, a couple of milestones that you have. So you graduated from Y Combinator. You mentioned, I personally think that's incredible numbers, right? Starting with not that much at the start of the year, starting out, and then landing in at tens of thousands of users. That's fantastic. So you went on, I think the big day is demo day with YC, right? So you have, I think, 2 minutes, right, to pitch. That must have been a very stressful experience. How did you manage?
Yeah, it was definitely stressful. There's a couple of funny things about it. One, everyone thinks the Y Combinator companies have it all figured out. I can just tell you they don't. It is a shit show from the day one through demo day. And, one thing that they do that I really enjoyed was every time you start a meeting, they ask you, what's your company? And like, they want that 10-second elevator pitch because that's what you're going to hopefully do for the rest of your life or the life of that company. And it's amazing to see how many people struggle just with that all the way up until demo day. And, we came with this pitch deck, and, you go get it reviewed by a partner a couple days out, and, even up until like the day before demo day. And we went so confident. And I remember like just driving down to Mountain View, smile on my face. I go make the pitch, and we're 2 days out, and the partner's like, this is actually a big step backwards. And I was like, no way, 2 days out, huh? Just like go back to the drawing board. And I remember then just getting as many people over to my house to get feedback from. I could pitch you on all these different ways. And I was supposed to get on stage in 2 days. So it was a high stress moment for sure. One thing I'll say is I loved it because it reminded me of football, and there's nothing like that feeling. I'm getting the goosebumps right now. Nothing like that feeling of coming out of the tunnel and on game day, and everybody's nervous, but it's like that good nervous energy that you prepared, and all these different things, and you get the butterflies. And I haven't felt that feeling until they were micing me up to walk out on the stage for demo day. It was really cool. And despite all the stress and stuff, it was a cool learning moment. I could reach back to my football days. Like, I had it way worse than this. We just got to go up here and talk for a couple minutes. So. And
there was no VC sacking you, right?
No.
So I got that going for you.
No.
So tell me, that I find that really interesting because I can relate. There's these situations. When I had a startup, I was on TV, and I remember for the German version of Shark Tank. And I remember I was never so nervous in my life, right? You just kind of, did I memorize the pitch right? I don't want to be too memorized. It just shouldn't be, too memorized. You want to be still. And I found that exhilarating. So tell me, 2 days before the big event, the partner says, oh my God, we have to really dig into this, and this is not done yet. So you go back, and what are the things you changed? What are the big things you wanted to hit with your pitch?
Oh, changed everything. It changed so wild. It was such a wild change, and it's tough because you have, in our position, we had so many people that we trust and look up to for advice and advisory. But you quickly realize you go to one person, they're going to tell you something wildly different than the other, and so we kind of fell into that trap where we got so much feedback, and then we came back to the partner, and that's when I described. He was like, "Wow, this is horrible," and so we went back. Took his advice, again mixed with someone else's, one of our already investors at the time, and it was really the story. Everything's about the story and storytelling, and it took a step towards giving that story more of a chance to breathe rather than, I guess, just hacking at it. It's hard to describe. It was a horrible presentation looking back on it, and you look at our deck now versus that deck there, and oh my gosh.
So I always think, it's 2 minutes. That's nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was and I talked to a couple of other founders about this, and they told me, well, you kind of have to hone in on one thing that you want to get across. Maybe it's the team, maybe it's the market,
mm-hmm.
maybe it's the tech, whatever. Did you have one thing that you really wanted people to take home with them?
I think for us, this is a huge market. It's legalizing quicker than marijuana, and for some reason, Silicon Valley hasn't totally gripped that, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly why, but it's going to be one of the biggest revenue opportunities to hit. You're already seeing these insane numbers coming out of the states that have legalized, and so I want them to know this is a huge market. This is a big deal, and we're getting a lot of users really quick right now. So there's something here. We have something figured out. Obviously, not everything, but it's powerful, and especially when you're talking about gambling. It's drinking, gambling, smoking. Doesn't matter what the economy's like. Everyone's doing it no matter what. So that was really the big thing.
Mm-hmm. So I love that. I what I love about it is those pressure moments when you really have to kind of dust off that and get that diamond to shine, right? And how did it work out? Did you guys get some interest?
It was incredible. It worked out so well, and it was such a cool experience given everything that led up to that moment of uncertainty and change this, change that. A day before, I didn't know what I was going to say up there. And I'm not the best public speaker, and I get nervous and things like that, but it just goes back to football. You hit this moment where you're about to walk out on the stage, And it's that internal self-talk that's like, hey, I got two options here. I can go up and kind of shake my way through this, or I can just go out there and kill it and just focus on, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, and just go let them feel that energy and the passion. And it was just so, that moment, that switch that hits, and you were able to go out there. So to give you an example, they have this investor like system. And so the day before we were at like 5.
So so this like system is, everyone has like this, is it an app or something that they can actually press like if they like to pitch?
Exactly, and it'll set up a meeting with that person. And so we had like 5, and we were kind of disappointed. And we go up, give the pitch, and then get off, and that's at 90. So it was just such a cool turnaround, and we kind of went rogue. We were getting so many users at that point that we were able to say, I kind of went off the script because you have to turn in the PowerPoint the night before. But from that night through when I got up on stage on demo day, I was able to tell them we just got 1,000 more users this morning has passed and I'm standing on the stage. And I actually even told them, I was like, hey, I need everyone's attention for a second. Can you look up here? And you could see all these VCs looking down at their computers like, oh, is he looking at me? That type of effect. It was really cool, and it worked well.
I mean, what kind of better point can you get across than, well, I handed this in yesterday evening, and from then we have already added 1,000 users. How do you want to generate money? What's the business model?
Yeah, so in the first way we'll generate money is through the managers and charging them a software fee for the tools we're building them, for premium data that they want to bring in through, our partner, Sport Radar, all these different things that helps their lives and helps them be more efficient, allows them to not use a Excel spreadsheet and 2 other screens to manage what they're doing. The big picture here is we want to offer those commission-free bets to people that want to take a one-off bet against another person. They can do that, and then if there's a bet they want to make that we don't offer, we can send them to an affiliate of ours, and the kickback on that is usually 20% of the losses. So to give you an example, for the lifetime value of that customer. And so, yeah, there's companies that do it well in England, and they're absolutely killing it, and they don't even have an interface of any kind. A lot of them are programmatic SEO companies that create content, send them to an affiliate, they make a bet, and they're getting 20% back, typically for the lifetime of that person making those bets. Mm-hmm. And so with all of our games, people are making these real bets that you would see at a sports book. And so if we can give you to it without the juice, so commission-free, we'd love to do that. If not, we'll give you the option to go make that real bet with an affiliate of ours. And that becomes super powerful. It's the LTVs in sports betting are so high that people, casinos, sports books, et cetera, will pay astronomical cost of acquisition, just to get one user. And so when it comes to us sending them people, we become super valuable to those books, but also we dodge all the licensing that comes with each state, and 1 to 10 million in each state per gambling license is just absurd. And so we found a crafty way around that, and hopefully the future is without commission, and you're able to make these bets in what looks a lot like a betting exchange between 2 people, highly social, and hopefully that's what Balto grows into.
But on those commission-free bets, you wouldn't get a cut, right? It's commission-free, so that would be like a service.
Right.
But if there's something you don't offer, that's the point where you would be incentivized, get an affiliate link.
Right.
Understood. Getting people in with, the brackets, the pick'ems, the survivors, having an easy-to-use tool, also offering the sports betting side, and then, being able to, be more, I guess, give better odds occasionally because you kind of don't have the commission, the juice, as you call it.
Absolutely.
And then, have the affiliate stream of revenue in case you don't offer a certain bet or someone else on the site doesn't offer a bet, I guess, and getting that as a kickback from.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it fits naturally with what you would do in these games and the bets that you would make. And, one of the biggest problems we would have if we don't have an affiliate side is the minute someone doesn't see the bet they want to make, they'll go somewhere else. And so if we can still offer that, but then I'll also offer them a much better odds and a payout, then just like Robinhood, has done it in the stock market, it becomes super real for us.
That's interesting, yeah. So what is that? I mean, that begs the question, how much are you affected by a legal side, regulatory?
That is the hardest question. So everything we do today, we're completely fine. Anything charging the managers, we're completely fine. Affiliate, we're fine. There's obviously some state regulation that we just have to be aware of and be cognizant of. But if it comes to peer-to-peer, that's where it gets really interesting because, I've looked at every single state and you go down the list and there's social betting laws in there. Some have, very explicit language. Some don't mention it at all. But I guess, fundamentally something that we can't wrap our heads around is if I want to bet you $20 that in a race or something, why is Uncle Sam not letting me do that? And it's happening anyways, just like sports betting was. They want the revenue and they want to make sure, there's no money laundering or anything like that. They can do this exact same thing and allow people to do and bet and play against each other the way that it's happening in the group chats, through Venmo, through PayPal. They know it. Their biggest days are on Super Bowl Sunday. Mm-hmm. So it's not something that they're not aware of, and which makes this really interesting for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm. And I think, there's some states like New Jersey that are actually legalizing these kinds of things, right? So there's kind of momentum for a couple of states that actually allow it and that will make it much easier for you.
Right. And so the other thing with the social betting, you don't get those wagers where someone's going to go drop $150K because how are you going to, not many people are going to take the opposite side of that bet. And so the big problem and why they set these gambling licenses so high is to discourage small startups and smaller companies that are going to probably default when they set the odds wrong. And, everything a casino has to do is get 50% of players to take one side of the bet and 50% to take the other. The minute they set the odds wrong and you have 90% on one side of the game and that game wins, well, now the company has to pay out all that money. So the people underwriting it, like the banks, don't want to touch it because they don't trust the fact that you could set those odds and be, you have the infrastructure ready to handle that or the cash flow. But that doesn't happen with social betting. You have two people that the money's going to one side or the other, and it completely avoids that whole situation. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that has to be done, but there's a lot that is very interesting and hopefully is going to get done.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of shift gears. How is that for you, kind of shifting? I mean, you were a quarterback, so is it like also comparable, being a co-founder of a company?
Absolutely. I think everything that I learned through football has prepared me for it. It's so synonymous in so many different ways. Everything the head coach, and I'm realizing it every single day, that every time we had a meeting, anything out on the field, the way he carried himself, that's culture. He's, it's things like, I mean, it's a little rougher, and sometimes it's no whining, no complaining, no excuses, do your job. Don't focus on everyone else around you. Like you have to trust that they're going to do what they're setting out to do. What is that? The product team, and everything as that maps out to the growth initiatives, and not looking over your shoulder to see, hey, is this guy going to actually block this guy, or am I going to get hammered on this play? Like that can't be what you're thinking about. And so they set that culture aspect from the top down. The rest of the team or the company buys into that, and that's what sets the grounds for success from day one. All the process, the discipline, don't even think about being late. There's so many great things that come out from the sport world and playing at a high level and how demanding they are that it's been incredible for myself growing into, this CEO role, managing people, managing personalities. The personalities you get on a football team are incredible. They range from all walks of life, and it only makes you a better communicator. You're able to understand people and where they come from and react and work with them in a different way. And so that can't be understated.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you already have 3 employees, right? 3 founders and 3 employees. That's
yes.
The current team that you have.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when was the last time you woke up and thought, wow, this is going to be the next big thing. I'm onto something here. And when was the last time you thought, oh my God, I have to quit this straight away. I have to do something else.
So from the next big thing, that's an interesting one, because those signals usually come from these external events where, it could be someone writing in on a customer support line, like, this is the best product ever, I love it. Or, we were on this he's an ESPN announcer, now famous podcaster, saying, God damn, the product's slick, and just, you buy into that, or you get a new investment, and all those things make you feel really good, and you start to wonder, like, all right, what's next? What can I chomp off? And this is going to be huge, and which is great. But what I've found is even more important than those external levers is always keeping it internal. It's so difficult in a startup, good or bad, but to be able to have that confidence and be assertive in what you believe in, and remind yourself there's nothing better than that self-confidence that comes from just yourself. And it's hard to describe, but I try to remind myself how good we have it every single day, and there, we work our butts off, and it's something that we love. And I think that all feeds into this huge vision and why we're doing it, and why we're sacrificing all these other things in our life for Balto. So that's on the big side. On the negative side, it kind of goes back to it's really the same thing. It's how do you control that on the inside? Because those thoughts, it's human nature for doubt and, everything to creep into your mind and cast that dark shadow. And it's really easy to buy into that. And I've been there, through trying my trials and tribulations with the first companies. And now, I just realized that importance. And again, you can tie it back to sports, but, everyone, has that inside them where you just have to block it out. It's tough to say because it happens. It's a roller coaster. You can get one phone call, a text. I could leave here and check my email and think that, but you just can't.
Yeah. I love it. And I mean, you talked about your career as a quarterback. There was ups and downs, right? There was, you mentioned one half where you threw 2 touchdowns. Everything was great. You thought you were going to be, you're going to be drafted at halftime. And then, 2 injuries, something. So I think what I find personally super interesting is how that kind of prepared you for these kinds of ups and downs. I find that fascinating. And now your role is obviously shifting to, well, either head coach or, again, quarterback. I don't know. And you said you're focusing on the culture and trusting people. How do you build the team? How do you make the call if someone is right for the team? Who are you hiring? What kind of people are you hiring?
Excuse me. It's very difficult. Hiring, I think, is probably up there, and I think anyone would say that with the most difficult thing, because it takes so much time. It's really tough to find talented people, but talent wins. It's either you can't substitute it. You have to go find those people. You have to be patient. You have to say no a lot, and you have to trust that there's going to be that fit and keep looking for those people. It's super hard. You got to find not only the cultural fit, you got to find your weakest points, on the ship that you're sailing, and how do we patch those up? And, people are holding in the holes on this side, and how do we get someone that is going to not only fill those holes, but take us on a new course and as a team. And so, our process, we interview all of them, all the founders talk to them. We try to emulate what it's like, to work with us in certain situations without being too overbearing. But at the end of the day, it's, you got to trust your gut. We've gone back and forth. We've had, an offer out to someone and had to have a tough conversation, and all these different things that you just try and look for the best signals, on both sides. Is it good and bad? And I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer. It's a difficult thing, and we're learning still. But we've been fortunate. Our first hire has been incredible. It changed the absolute course of us as a team, and then we're lucky to find 2 others that have followed right in suit with that.
That's interesting, because when I talk to founders that and they're, they have success, you have the Y Combinator label, right, which is obviously super helpful. And now you're starting to scale, and now you have to add personnel. I think a lot of people tell me that this is the moment where they grow the most, because, of course, it's gut feeling. You have to kind of make sure, who do you hire? Is it engineering? Is it marketing? When do I shift to sales? So, that's really interesting, and that echoes what I hear from a lot of founders. Great. So let's move on to some rapid-fire questions.
Great.
Right? So it's self-explanatory. What is the thing you wish you knew before founding Balto?
Wow.
That's a big one for a rapid fire question. I just realized.
Oh, man. I think that users lie a lot. It's tough to take all their feedback when they don't know what they want.
What accomplishment are you most proud of?
Putting together the founding team that we have, and those were the first 2 sales pitches I had to give, and I couldn't be more proud of those 2.
Baseball or basketball?
Basketball.
That was quick, huh?
Yeah.
Who is the person that inspired you the most?
My mom and dad. It's tough can't pick between those 2, but look up to them ever since. They've been incredible examples. You mentioned before you have a very prominent father. Has it been mostly a burden or an advantage for you? Advantage.
What is the skill you admire most in others?
I think storytelling, as of lately, it's so important.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you had the experience with the Y Combinator, right?
Yep.
And what does success mean for you?
Success is going to be repaying everyone that trusted in us from the beginning. And I think there's nothing I want to do more than prove them right.
How do you unwind?
Surfing.
What was the best thing you ever did on the football field?
I wasn't spiking it on 4th down. I think, my first touchdown pass in the Coliseum at USC was great.
Wow. Yeah. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
There we go. That was quick. And what is the best advice you've ever received?
I love Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish from Steve Jobs.
That's a good one. Yeah, we haven't had that before. Nick, I can only tell you, we talked about a bunch of stuff. We talked about your life as a quarterback, your athletic career. We talked about the pressure that you had to kind of endure growing up with a prominent father, and also the advantages. Obviously, this is not negative. The role of exercise that you have. Talked a lot about Balto. I understood the value, the opportunity of the market that you're addressing. I find it really fascinating. Talked a bit about the challenge that you have now. Learned that you love Star Wars. So I can only say thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you all the best for Balto.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Had a great time.
So, das war mein Gespräch mit Nick. Am meisten beeindruckt hat mich Nicks Optimismus und Lockerheit. Ein bisschen ist er die Personifizierung des California Surfers, hat aber gleichzeitig so viel Ehrgeiz, dass er die Last seines Nachnamens in etwas Positives und Optimistisches verwandelt. Ich habe 3 Sachen aus dem Gespräch mitgenommen. Erstens, der Markt schafft den Markt. In den USA wird der Markt für Sportwetten gerade liberalisiert und Balto marschiert vorne mit. Genau wie das vorher mit Marihuana passiert ist, entsteht dadurch ein Klima, in dem für mutige Unternehmer allein der wachsende Markt für Chancen sorgt. Obwohl Nick das regulatorische Umfeld ein bisschen als Herausforderung beschrieben hat, ist es im Grunde genommen sein bester Freund. Überall eröffnen gesetzliche Veränderungen gerade neue Möglichkeiten, in Deutschland zum Beispiel im Bereich der digitalen Bildung mit dem Digitalpakt oder natürlich der Elektromobilität. Zweitens, von Spitzensportlern lernen. Auch wenn Nick jetzt nur noch surft, war er doch ein ziemlicher Spitzensportler, der aus dieser Zeit sehr viel zieht. Ein paar Sachen, die mir aufgefallen sind. Train the fundamentals, also kümmere dich um das grundlegende Rüstzeug für deine Idee. Für einige ist das Online-Marketing, um ein Affiliate-Modell aufzubauen, für andere vielleicht der Aufbau einer Supply Chain von China nach Deutschland. Ohne Daten kein Fortschritt. Überlege dir genau, was du verbessern willst und fange dann an, es zu messen und dich iterativ zu verbessern. Du willst, dass mehr Leute auf deine Website kommen, dann schalte 10 Kampagnen bei Google oder Facebook und schau, was am besten geklickt wird. Wenn du mehr Sales auf deiner Seite willst, dann mach A/B-Tests von 2 Website-Layouts und mess die Conversion Rates. Drittens, wenn Content King ist, dann sind Stories Papst und Kaiser in einem. Nick erzählt, wie er auf dieser großen Bühne stand und um die Aufmerksamkeit von den versammelten Investoren gebuhlt hat. Allein die Aufmerksamkeit zu bekommen, war irre schwierig und geht nur mit einer glasklaren Geschichte, die alles zusammenbindet. Natürlich hätte er 100 Dinge gehabt, die er hätte erzählen können, aber diesen einen Winkel zu finden, der wirklich durchdringt, das kostet eine Menge Zeit und Energie. Das war's für heute. Melde dich unbedingt zum Newsletter an auf www.digitaleoptimisten.de, in dem ich die Sachen aufschreibe, die mich in der Woche bewegt haben hier im Silicon Valley. Und bewerte meinen Podcast auf Spotify, iTunes oder wo auch immer du gerade hörst mit 5 Sternen. Bis zum nächsten Mal.